Real news. True, honest, and not fake news. Welcome back to another edition of Real News Uncensored. This week, we're going to delve into the big topics of the week, starting off with the news that kind of took hold in the later half of the week, which was the resignation of Justice Kennedy from the Supreme Court. Oh, retirement, I should say. He announced his retirement, which means there's now an open seat on the Supreme Court, which is obviously a big deal. And this was a guy that, was kind of a swing vote in the Supreme Court. He voted for the gay marriage thing, and he also voted for the travel ban, and he voted to uphold affirmative action, and a bunch of other stuff. But overall, I heard a statistic that he voted basically with the right-leaning justices 80% of the time. So now Trump has got to pick a new justice, and he said he'll pick it on July 9th. And Mitch McConnell said that they will vote on nominating the new justice that Trump picks in the fall. So, of course, in the reaction is conservatives are loving it. This is a great time for them and their justice on the court to secure a right-leaning majority. But liberals, of course, are freaking out like it's the end of the world. What are your thoughts been on this, Mr. Alex?
Well, the thing that liberals are getting really pissed off about is because he was the deciding factor in, I believe it was Roe versus Wade, if my memory doesn't mistake it.
He very well could have been. I don't know about that, but yeah.
That's what my understanding and the memes that they sent so far, and the liberals are freaking out that, oh no, there could be another right-leaning justice, but he already kind of was right-leaning, but he did swing a few times, but so did Gorsuch, I think. He didn't swing, but there was something he voted on and people weren't happy about it. I forget what the exact topic was that he mentioned that he did the deciding vote on, but either way, I think this is a good situation. The left is freaking out for really no reason, and they keep making these memes. It's oh, this guy comes in, he's going to ban birth control. No.
Yeah.
The most that he could do is repeal Roe versus Wade, which abortion I'd hardly classify as birth control unless if you extrapolate that far, I guess banning video games would be a form of banning birth control because it makes some people just fat and banning incels we considered a birth control ban, but the left would be fine with that.
Is that an official position of Real News here to ban incels?
We can't really ban incels. That's the thing, they're an interesting group of people, and the left they created them. It seems like it just started this term. It became a big meme because the left wing, they keep posting, oh, these incels who go on to websites like 4chan, 8chan, and Reddit, and and they've always existed. They've always been an issue. Sure, there might be some more now. And I think there's a lot of factors that go into the birth of the incel.
I'd say a big, acceleration of it was caused by man-hating third-wave feminism.
I think that's part of it because, these days, it's very hard to get in the dating scene. You have to be very careful as a man because, there's a good chance you could get someone who's, downright, an ardent feminist, and they give you a rape accusation. That's a definite thing. And these days, it's not even just yes means yes. You have to get, for every little step of the way. It's the old paperclip in Microsoft, operating system. Is are you sure you want to do this? Windows Vista. It's basically what you have to, is what women, want you to do. Is be that little paperclip, and then I also seen these articles too. It's millennials are having less sex than everyone else. Well,
yeah.
I wonder why. And as much as they go and put sex out there and they're talking about it, they just don't have it as much, probably because they're afraid to. And then there's also other things involving the economy and the fact that people don't want children these days. And that's the thing too, because women, they feel I think they're kind of told not to have kids until they're 30, which biologically is not a very smart decision to do. Your prime birthing years is I think somewhere between biologically, I'm not saying to do this, but biologically I think it's 16 to 26 is when you're in your prime to have kids. Or really I think whenever, here's some biologists, but generally starting at 16 that sort of degrades. But once you hit 30, it starts going really downhill. By the time you're in your 40s, I wouldn't do it. It's like, like a milk. It's like a week past expiration date. I mean, yeah, you might be able to have decent milk, but chances are there's going to be something wrong and you're going to have problems. That's like having kids after 40. Like, you could be fine, but, statistics say you're less likely to have a kid with a birth defect if you had sex with your brother.
Yeah.
And if you had sex past, have a kid past, age like 40. Like, I think it really starts going down between like 35. It's just, you don't want to do it. And that's what happens with the ladies. They get told that being a housewife isn't enough. And, it is. Like, it generally is. Like, most of the people I know who are housewives who have children, stay-at-home mothers, they generally enjoy it. And the good thing is, after you're done having kids, if you have your kids early, especially like, you might have a couple kids, 2 or 3 kids by the time you stop having them, by the time you're like 32 or something. And then, you'll be in your 50s, and then you can spend the rest of your life working a career. There's nothing wrong with that. You have your kids early. Like, and really, with schools, you only really need to be like really super involved, like until they're in like middle school. Like, really, elementary school, like by the time they're in like 4th, 5th grade, I mean, you start to be involved, but like the amount of resources, it's really like the first 6 years of their life they'd be super, super heavy involved with a child. Like, yeah, you might have to go to their soccer games and stuff. And most kids, like, their parents don't even go there, and they're fine with that. It really depends on how you want to raise your kid. But to get back to what we were talking about, I think that this Kennedy resignation could be a good thing. Be able to actually get someone in, and if they're going to stonewall us, that could be a problem.
Yeah, I don't think they're having much luck with that because, they're going to try and get this in before midterms. And they should be able to hold. I don't know if you need 2/3 in Senate to get it approved. You probably do, but they could probably get it. But hey, if they don't, that's 1,000 times more motivation to get us in the midterms, get Republicans out. But Roe versus Wade, being overturned, I have mixed feelings about that idea. I think it could be really bad, and make the Republicans look bad, but at the other end of it, I don't think it's that radical of an idea because I don't know a lot about Roe versus Wade. I mean, abortion's not an issue I've deep dived into enough, but from what I understand, Roe versus Wade just basically legalized a certain level of abortions. Now, I forget, what was that?
It legalized abortion up until I think it was like 20 some odd weeks, or it was originally like 12. But like, it basically legalized abortion nationwide because previously it was not legal nationwide. That was the major thing.
Yeah. So, regardless if that's good or bad, and let's say they do overturn it, it's just going to be up to the states now. And these states would if they wanted to keep abortion to that length or longer or whatever, they could do it so quickly. And if you don't like that your state does it, then, you can move out if you really want to. I know it's difficult to do, but I don't see it as an end of the world sort of thing if Roe versus Wade gets overturned. I mean, I don't have a real stance on, it to say if it's good or bad, but I'm generally of the philosophy that I would tell a woman not to get an abortion to do as a last resort, but, don't wait around too long until it becomes like a fully formed like fetus in there. I mean, to me, that's not right to be aborting something then, because I've heard stories about abortions and it screws women up. So to me, avoid it at all costs. But so people understand where I'm coming from on this. I'm not hardcore in any sense, but I just don't see overturning Roe versus Wade as the end of the world. Could it look bad for Republicans? Possibly, but at the end of the day, I don't even know if that's going to happen. I think there's going to be a push for it, by a bunch of groups, but I don't know if it'll happen.
Oh, see, I mean, I'm Catholic. I'm very much pro-life. I don't believe that, if a kid did nothing wrong, a fetus, I generally don't want it to be, killed.
Yeah.
Like, the only time, that might differ from the Catholic Church is in the case that there's a pregnancy that cannot be completed due to danger to the mother.
Yeah.
And that point, certain cases with like ectopic pregnancies, I think that would be
all those
if there's no other way to keep the fetus. That'd be my only sort of thoughts on that. And that's only like last resort. And if it would mean the death of the mother, like 100%. Not really too sure on the medical procedures and what other options there are, but that's the only time I think that would ever be acceptable.
Yeah, rape, incest, death of the mother, all those freak examples are always...
With rape, that they want to go and push these edge cases with that. How often do you think a rapist is going to go and, ejaculate inside somebody? That's just leaving genetic evidence right there.
Yeah, but I wouldn't, it doesn't sound logical, but that's assuming rapists are logical people.
Well, they generally don't want to get caught. And here's the thing, like, normally, like, there's one sexual encounter is very unlikely to produce a child, like a pregnancy from that.
Yeah.
And even then, there's other options you could go and do. You take, like, a morning after pill.
Yeah, that's what I have a problem with, is these people that it's like they wait forever and then they get the abortion. Like, there's a lot of proactive measures you can take, and then day after measures you can take. Like, I know rape is a traumatic thing and all that, but if you want to make the best of your situation, then do like those morning after pills and stuff like that, and just do that shit so you don't have to worry about this stuff, and getting into a worse situation, and just I think a lot of this like controversy would be avoided if people just like you're gonna know at a certain point if you're pregnant, and once you know, make that decision like within a week, because I don't know when life really begins, but I would believe in those very early stages you could argue it's not life, but once you get to the point of fully formed fetus, what are you've been waiting forever.
Well, how do you define life? Like,
I don't know.
Like, the only one that makes sense to me is like at conception. That's the only time it's like, because before that it's just like, oh, you could go up. Like, what's the difference between a fetus and a baby? Like, if you've seen like I think past like with a premature birth, you can have people like born who are like 28 weeks, like a baby, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, they can survive with the aid of machinery, and then they become, relatively healthy when they grow up. It's just that to be put in an incubation station.
Mm-hmm.
Like, see, that's kind of, I don't really understand this whole, like, either it's beginnings at conception, or you're just, like, making up some BS, in my opinion. Like, it just doesn't make any sense any other way, because that's the only thing that changes it. There's plenty of way, and like 99% of cases of abortion don't involve rape.
Yeah, I know those are freak examples.
Something so low, but they make this the number one issue. It's like with the Mexicans coming over the border with their kids, and like the chance of the kids like being gone. There's like millions of people crossing the border illegally like every year, like millions and millions, and of those like maybe 2,000 of them are without their parents. It's like less than 1%, and they make these edge cases become their basis for the entire argument, and except for when it involves guns, It's not even that. It's like that's what they do with it too. It's like there's a school shooter, so we should go and ban guns, and that's like an edge case. But there's a rape, so let's not ban abortion. How does that make sense?
Yeah.
How does that make sense to me? It doesn't. But anyways, we were talking about the Supreme Court. Now, there was two important rulings this week. One on the travel ban, again, which I don't know how they can keep bringing this shit up. This has been on like 5 times in the past year. Like, they need to, like, why are these courts trying to get, like, can't the Supreme Court just go and be like, yo, stop this. We already ruled on this, not once, not twice. This is like the 3rd time now. If you do this again, we're just going to go kick you out because you're overstepping your boundaries. And then there was a really important one on unions, which is something that I'd like, because unions, they do a lot of really shady things in some places. And I've had, like, Facebook arguments with people over this. But, like, it just doesn't make sense to me how they can do some crazy sort of rulings.
Well, what I love is, like, with this ruling, which basically says, like, if you're not, a part of the union, because some workplaces, for those that are too young to be in the workforce, you can sometimes choose to be in a union or not. but some workplaces will require you like to pay certain like union dues or collective bargaining. This ruling says that if you're not, if you work at like let's say a school and you're not part of the union, you don't have to pay into them. Now, I have no problem with that. Like, I don't see what the controversy is. Like, I see people freaking out over this. Like, I had like a notification from like CNN that was like, "Oh, this is going to cause economic turmoil." I'm like, "What?" Or people saying like, "Oh, you're limiting their, their choice." This is the definition of choice.
Oh yeah, like see, especially with government sector unions, and I kind of wish too, because what they can do in the private sector, and they probably do this in government sector up until this, is like they'll make it so that if you're not in the union, the union will sign a contract with the employer saying that they can only hire union members at this like workshop or something.
Yeah.
And that is what really pisses me off, because that's a form of discrimination based on your association. If you refuse to associate with the union, employ you here, and that should be struck down. But in most cases, like you see unions dying off, and that's like because they don't really pick up in the private sector. Yeah. And I feel that, as much as I will say this about unions, I do think that there is one option that unions haven't considered, because they're most like 9 out of 10 times, with the exception maybe the Border Patrol Union, they're all insanely leftist organizations.
Yeah.
But I think that as a union, what they should be worrying about is keeping the jobs in America and allowing the workers to have their freedom of expression outside of working hours, to not be fired for that. That'd be like the one union I'd be. They did was, like stop employers like Google from like firing people for having different opinions. Like the one guy, who was it? The guy with the memo,
James Damore.
Yeah. If they did if I was like, if they had a union over there, like my sort of that from happening. Like that would be the point of it. It'd prevent them from kicking someone out for having for writing the Google memo.
Well, there are quite a few unions that are that way. Like I know a friend that works for a union that says like he could rip into his boss and like talk all kinds of shit, around the place, and he wouldn't have to worry about getting fired. Like there's a lot of protection in a union, which has its benefits and drawbacks, of course.
Well, see, I'm fine if they just did that, but 9 out of 10 times they'll go and like argue for like ridiculous things like
pay increases.
Yeah, well, it's not just that, but like it makes it become unprofitable. That's the problem. Like that's what killed the American automotive industry. Not even just America, it killed Britain's automotive industry. There was a documentary by who's that guy from Top Gear, Jeremy Clarkson.
Yeah,
he talked about I think it was automotive industry, and what killed like MG and I think a bunch of other companies was like the unions were striking so much that like the quality of the cars were just like dog crap.
Oh yeah.
Like you might go and like find one time you buy a car, the wipers don't work, or like the door falls off, or the electrical stuff is all kablooey, which is why they kind of suck towards the end of the production of those vehicles within Britain, at least. And that's ultimately what led to, and the same thing kind of happened to my understanding, and that's when like probably around like this late 70s and 80s, and that's when you see like Honda and Toyota come to America, is because like they did have unions in Japan, but they weren't as obstructive as they are in America, to my understanding. Like they didn't do these like crazy amounts of like strikes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what kept their automotive industry fairly intact. But like, I do feel that like workers should be able to go. I don't think you're just going to be able to cuss out your boss, but like I think you shouldn't be fired for like having an opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that's what unions should focus on, and focus on keeping shoot, if you're going to strike, do it over them building a freaking like Ford factory in Mexico. That would be something I'd be for. Like that's probably like a strange, naughty opinion, but like I think they should keep jobs in America. Like a populist or Republican sort of right-wing thing would be to go and have these sort of that would be like you could go and argue that, to go and keep jobs in America, and which is good for the unions because they keep their workers employed. No, I don't think they should go and like keep pushing and pushing and pushing for more, money like they always do, and more benefits, and they get this and they get that. But I mean, I don't think they necessarily should. I just don't think that you shouldn't be able to go and like you should be able to go and kick out non-union workers from the workplace. I don't think that should definitely. I don't even think they should have like unions in the public sector.
I think they should be allowed to make them, but I just think it's a bad idea.
Well, like when you have it where you have to be in a union in a public sector or like pay money into it, I think that's wrong. I don't like unions in public sector. The public sector should try to produce the most effective product with the least amount of money. That should be the only thing to save the taxpayer's dollar.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's the exact opposite of what we have in reality. Like, shoot, I was watching an episode of King of the Hill, earlier today, and they had a something about like I think Bill Dauterive. He like gave Hank Hill a haircut, and they charged Hank Hill $900 because Bill was in the army, and they make everyone else like pay off the taxpayer dollar like $900 to get a haircut, and that seems ridiculous until you realize that like some government facilities they pay like $100 for a roll of toilet paper, and they have these contracts, and they put the money in there, and then they get kickbacks when they go and build these other projects, and that's a major problem when you have this level of political corruption. Like, they need to have like some sort of looking over this stuff, and if you're caught doing gross negligence, like just fraud more or less, like these sort of kickbacks, there needs to be people thrown into jail over this. But it generally doesn't happen. If it does, it's like 20 years after the fact.
Yeah. And well, the other thing you mentioned when you mentioned political, the problem I have with unions is that you want to talk about the biggest donor to Democrats? It's not, George Soros money. It's not, environmental groups. It's freaking unions. They're the biggest donors to the Democrats, or maybe you could argue politics in general. And I'm not saying, that, they shouldn't be allowed to do this, but maybe they shouldn't be. Like, because wouldn't, when you pay your union dues, like, or whatever the money you give them, you have no control where that money's going. Like, you think it's going towards the union to help you and help the union, but it's going to these big, think tanks and political organizations that may not be for your benefit.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's wrong that they're allowed to donate to politics. And I've even heard cases, I don't know if they've caught all these, but they'll like the union boss will go and like look you up your vote, who registered to vote for. And if it's not like a Democrat, and this is public information, you can find out who's registered to vote for somebody. I don't know if they're allowed to do it, but I've heard cases when they have done this before, and they'll go and reprimand you somehow if you're not registered to vote for the right, the right quotation mark party, which is the Democrats like 100% of the time. I think that's just absurd that they're allowed to do that. Like, I'm fine with like voluntary organizations like donating to politics like the NRA, but with unions, they're not exactly voluntary in many cases where you'll be stopped from entering a workplace unless you're a member of the union, and that's where it gets me like really upset.
Well, and that's where this court decision's great, because imagine if you're going to try and work for a company and you don't want to be a part of the union because let's say you don't like, for whatever reason, but you also don't like where the money's going, but they still have a gun to your head saying, well, if you want to work for us, you better pay to the union, even though if you're not a part of it. Well, screw that, I don't want my money going to all these like left-leaning, socialist, groups. I mean, that's not fair in any sense. I always try to point out, hey, both sides do this, but in this case, when has the right done this? Okay, when has the right held a gun to your head at a company and said, you better join this and that, because it donates to right-wing groups and does all this other stuff, or hey, you're not going to work here.
Well, I think you're misrepresenting it, because this is government workers. This isn't like if I'm in
that's true.
Joe's Plum Shack company and they have a union there, they can still do all that. It's just
that's true.
If you're working at a government facility and they have a union, then you're not allowed to go and then they can't make you join, pay union dues. Like if you're at a school and you're in the teachers and it's a teachers union affiliated school, then you can't be forced to go and donate money to pay for collective bargaining, which you may or may not actually want.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have read this a little more closely, but yeah, um, it's just like I'm not the biggest hater of unions, but I like freedom and choice, and the more you restrict that, I think generally the worse society gets, and especially in a government agency when you really, you know, it's a public agency. You know, that's what you got to keep in mind. It's not like a private company where it's like they can do whatever they want and it doesn't affect you as much. Like, these are government, public agencies that are, you know, funded by taxpayer dollars.
Oh yeah, so in effect, your taxpayer money, up until this was going directly into the pockets of people who will vote who will like put money into the Democrats' coffers. Your money had like a beeline. Your taxes that would go towards paying unions to go and pay for Democrats to be elected. Like, how does that make you feel, like you, the taxpayer? Like, if you're not like a Democrat, and even if you are a Democrat, like, what say, there was a Republican union in the schools. How would that make you feel? That was helping Republicans get elected. You wouldn't like that. So this is a good thing for freedom, and it's for lowering the amount of your money being spent into politics that you don't like. And I think this is a step in the right direction. I'd like them to, at least public sector ones, I'd like those to be abolished. If you don't have a private union, that's fine, but I just don't think they have a place in the public.
Yeah.
My opinion, because that is like taking your money in there. Like, if they want to have, something else that doesn't go into like politics, I think like teachers unions, I don't think any public sector union be allowed to go and spend money into politics. Like, not at all.
I don't think they should be allowed to spend it in anything other than, their workplace.
Yeah, like, if it goes into politics, and like, I could even concede, as long as it doesn't go directly electing people, I would be fine. Like, make them do like only for specific legislation, at least as a first step. I'd like them to be completely gone from politics, but you can only hope. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't always get what you want. You want to move on to the next topic?
Yep.
Yeah, now this topic's it's an interesting one because it's a little hard to predict what's going to happen here. But what we know that did happen was in New York, there was a upset of an election where long-term representative of the New York 14th District, Joseph Crowley, was a big-name Democrat, old guy. He's been there a long time. He's been in a specific seat since 2013, and he was the one that was gonna, win this election, no problem. And then when Democrats, in their, hopeful dreams, win the midterms, he would become the Speaker of the House, instead of Nancy Pelosi, who's always kind of that, ready to take that sort of seat person. But he lost his election, and big time, to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who, as you can already tell, is a Hispanic woman. She's only 28. She's a self-proclaimed Democratic socialist, and she defeated him in this election. Now, if you want to know how socialist she is, she's, I would even argue, more to the left of Bernie Sanders. She's not only for universal health care, free not only just free college, but free education everywhere across the board. She's also for a universal job guarantee, which I don't know how that works, but it's like if you can't find a job, the government will give you one, which, again, I don't know how that works. She's for impeaching Donald Trump, okay? And then the very provocative one, if you'd call it, she's calling for the abolishment of ICE. She wants ICE abolished, completely gone. Which is taken a little bit of steam, actually. Like, that's actually caught off, that idea of abolishing ICE, which I'll talk about in a bit. But I'm interested in her. I'd follow her, keep my eye on her. Because I wouldn't underestimate her. Because if the Democratic Party keeps going further left, and you saw how much traction Bernie got, she could get some traction. But I generally think this is something that can only be applied to a local level. On a national level, she would not win in a general election. Most Americans are nowhere near ready for extreme socialism like this. But what's interesting, about her is that she is a young, new-faced Democratic Party. And this one article on, I'm forgetting the site, The Intercept, Glenn Greenwald, The Intercept, she complained about Democrats being too apologetic, so she's going to be this unapologetic, candidate, which I think is good for them in the sense, like, if they want to start winning things, you better be unapologetic, because it works with Trump. It's going to pretty much work across the board. She's also kind of taken a sort of Trumpian sort of spin into politics by giving simple, provocative policy points or negotiating points. As she even pointed out in the same article where she talks about the abolishment of ICE is just a negotiating point. It's a provocative statement that's simple, that will get her attention and get, pace and lead people to a more moderate position. Assuming that's what she really wants to do. That she says it's a negotiating point, but I don't know. But I watched some interviews with her, and I gotta say, you can tell she hasn't done this before. Like, she was literally a bartender before she was doing this, even though she had a economics degree, ironically, from a from a big university. I forget which one, but she's not a dumb person. She comes off nice and honest in these interviews, but she does say some crazy shit like all Republicans are racist and all that crap. But I guess that rallies your base, on the Democratic side. But she's very bad with public speaking. She just does not come off good. She goes with a lot of and I know, I mean, and it just doesn't come off good. There's no confidence in her voice. There's no passion. I just don't see that energizing people. I mean, I think there's a lot of people helping her out there that, have helped her get this victory, but there's no doubt she has some skill. I just don't see the whole skill stack here.
Well, actually, I think this is a great thing for Republicans, because this could be a fracturing of the Democratic Party from the more moderate left, the more inclusive moderate left into this like hardcore ultra left, like Bernie sort of thing, which is what I think won Trump the election by fracturing the base. And this is going to scare the establishment Democrats, who've predominantly been white, and this could actually unify the the white voter base against this, because they realize that there's no place for them in America once this happens. And this isn't going to just be her. Like, this is going to be within the Democratic Party, at least. You're going to start seeing this happen. It's going to make people realize that maybe this illegal immigration problem might be an actual problem.
Yeah, because when she says shit like abolish ICE, I think that turns a lot of people off, because I think there's definitely that cult following. I think she's going to get a cult following, kind of like a Rand Paul sort of cult following, but even smaller, in the sense that there are those bleeding heart sort of liberals that think ICE is inhumane, because she's kind of capitalizing on this children in cages, family separation thing. I think there are people that do see ICE as an inhumane group, and that's how she's reframing the situation. But most people are for stronger borders and tougher enforcement and deploying illegals. 80-90% of Americans are for that. And when you say abolish ICE, that is, in people's minds, abolishing law and order. And that makes people scared. People like safety, they like security, they like law and order. So I think it's going to turn people off, to be honest.
Yeah, what she's saying is just, scary. And she wants to go and do massive taxing to pay for all this. And, the average working Joe is not going to want massive tax increases, even if it does involve free tuition. And then this universal job guarantee, there's a way you could kind of do this by requiring people who are on welfare to go and work.
Yeah, and I'm 100% for that.
Yeah, even if you fit, and I think you should be required. I saw this on the news. I don't know who suggested that, but make them do a mandatory 40 hours a week of community service instead. Yeah. I think that'd be fine.
I love that. It's because my problem is, if you are physically able to do work, you should be doing it. If you have a physical, mental disability that you're born with that prevents you from doing work, that's a whole different ballgame. But if you can do work, you should be doing work. No questions about it. And if you don't want to do work, that's fine, but you don't get any government benefits. If you want to be on the government benefits, you have to either be looking for a job or after a certain point have a job, or else
Well, like,
bye-bye.
Well, like, see, even if you do have like a disability, like have like greeters, even if it's just that, this is what Japan does. They'll make people who are on their social security, their like welfare equivalent. They'll make them go over there and they'll like hand them their tickets at the train station. Just something menial like that, just to get up and out. Because if they don't work, then they're just going to sit home and like play on the computer all day.
Yeah.
And, I think if you want to get welfare, you should have to go and pay for it. And like, even if you're in a wheelchair,
it
you can go
defeats the purpose
like
of it, though.
Yeah, even if if you do have a mental disability, there is still something you can do, like pushing. Even if you have to go and like be a cart pusher, something. Maybe not that. Maybe you could just go and like be a car pusher. There's something that you can do that would make other people's lives easier, and that would get you out of the house. There's something you can always be doing, and I think everyone should have to go and like unless you have enough money, you should have to go and try to be a benefit to society somehow. At least, even if it's not worth whatever the welfare benefits you're getting, you should have to do that. Or yet you should have to like be actively seeking training.
Yep.
Which like you just have to be doing something.
Yeah, exactly. And I know what people are gonna say. Oh, but I can't find a job because there are no jobs. Bullshit. I'm working right now as a summer job. And let me tell you, there are so many employers that are begging for people to work for them. Kohl's had a sign that literally said, if you want a job, come in now, help wanted. We will interview you right now. Like, no wait, no second appointment. No, we'll interview you right now. There are so many places that are desperate for jobs. And you want to know why this is? It's because kids don't want to work. They are spoiled and they think, oh, I don't have to work. And I understand, like, enjoy your summer. Like, don't get me wrong. But there's so many people that have graduated college. They're like, I'm going to take a year or two off. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, how are you going to pay for your bills? How are you going to pay for that student loan? Like, get your ass to work, And I think that mentality of, I don't have to work because we have monies is not a good mindset, because just because mom and dad are paying for it doesn't mean you're not going to have to real soon. So, and I think, also people are going to say, well, but automation is going to be replacing things. Yeah, it's going to be, but it's not right now. So let's make good of this now, because when that problem comes, that's going to be a huge problem, in terms of what are we going to do for all these people. Of course, there's going to be people, these robots are going to need to be maintained, so that's going to be a job. But there's going to be a net loss of jobs. And, what are we going to do with those people? I don't know, but that's something we have to figure out.
Absolutely, I agree with that. But I think that this is a turning point in the Democratic Party. They're gonna have some explaining to do. They're gonna do a restructuring. There's gonna be a change somewhere in them from this. Yeah. But on to our last topic of the week is the newspaper shooting in Annapolis, Maryland. Mm-hmm. I think 5 people were killed. It was with a shotgun. So before you go off on, it's another AR-15, no, it's like an action shotgun, like just a regular shotgun, like nothing special. This, if you want to go and ban this, you're gonna piss off the like several million hunters in America.
Yeah, and they haven't even been calling the ban. You notice that? Like, they're just like, oh shit, it's not AR. Darn.
Yeah, it's like it's the same thing. What happens like with there's like a black shot up a church a couple years ago, and no one talked about it because they weren't white. Yeah, and that's their thing. When it's something that they don't like, when it's not the narrative of like a white guy with an AR-15 or some scary looking weapon, they just. But this one was interesting because this was, my thoughts. This was during a very positive news week for the Republic, at least for Trump, with the travel ban, unions, and the Kennedy resignation. And then, it just so happens that these things tend to coincide. Whenever there's a positive news cycle, it seems there's something negative that pops up right at the end of the week. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but that's just what I tend to see over here. So take that as you will. That's my thoughts. there was this shooting, and there could be more on it. Like major news don't report on that. But there was, this guy ended up shooting these people, and this has been going on for years, since I think like 2011, because the newspaper targeted this guy for harassing somebody. He got pissed off. He sued them. Laws were thrown out. He was just getting really upset, and then he decided to go and take out his revenge.
Yeah, he claimed that they were defaming him, which it sounded like they weren't, because like he'd done some harassment and shit. The guy just sounded like crazy. Like, because I saw somebody, people jumping the gun on this, to use a bad pun, jumping the gun on this story, where they were saying that, he was motivated by Maxine Waters telling, to go after, he's like a radical leftist that was, radical leftist, like, going nuts. And then there were the people on the left saying it was a Trump supporter, like going after the fake news and getting all angry because of Trump's rhetoric. Like, no, it wasn't any of these cases. And you fucking people were, scoring some political points and making speculation for any of the facts we're in. And I think to go on your sort of, your Alex Jonesy sort of theory of, or, idea of this, I think because I don't want to sound mean when I say this, but there were only 5 people killed. Usually these things get coverage when it's like a high body count, like over 10, and when you're in the double digits. And I think, there may have been, I don't know, but maybe some people in the media wanted to give this more coverage than they would normally get. Maybe.
I think the reason for that, apart from my thoughts, they want to go and make Trump look stupid, because Trump is not like the mainstream media, even though I don't think he's specifically spoken out about the Capitol Gazette.
Yeah.
I think it's just like, oh, someone shot a journalist.
Yeah.
Encourages violence to journalists. Thing.
Yeah.
And then, there's Milo Yiannopoulos, and he's been like banned and from like Venmo and PayPal, but there's always Zelle. Milo, you can always use that unless they ban you from that too. And that's what pisses me off. Like, here's just a basic thing. Unless you're a convicted, like, even then, like, criminals, like, they still have freaking PayPal and stuff. I don't think you should be able to kick someone out from a PayPal, like a payment processing service, unless you are, like, doing illegal things with that money, like you're being a drug dealer. I think there should be a law against that, and then they should be required to go and have them there, because if they were going to say you have to have Twitter. This is a First Amendment, because how can you it's freedom of association.
Yeah.
They banned people from these other services for during the Charlottesville, from trying to go take a ride down to Charlottesville before the actual event happened, just because they associated with those people. I think for things like that, it should only be if you're physically harming somebody. And what Milo did, I would not consider physical harm. He made some some statements on there which I think probably look bad in hindsight, but he couldn't have predicted this. This guy, I doubt, had any sort of relationship with Milo. I doubt he even knew who Milo really was, because this was going on since 2011. So I can say with fair certainty that Milo didn't have anything to do with this, and Donald Trump didn't have anything to do with this.
Yeah.
This has been... Yeah?
Oh, no, keep going. I was just agreeing with you.
This has been a rage that's been brewing for years, and he was obviously mentally unstable, and, this is a tragedy that it happened, but maybe if, some of the people over there were able to go and defend themselves, if this guy only had a shotgun, you could recently take out this guy with a pistol.
Yeah.
And they could have prevented that.
Yeah, and I see a lot of right-wing people saying oh, this is the hateful media that fueled this. No, this is a fucking isolated incident of a guy that had this vendetta against this newspaper. And you gotta remember too, this is to both the left and the right, this is a local newspaper. Local papers and local news tends to be the most unbiased, straight news you're gonna get. So this wasn't instigated by the press in any way. This guy was nuts. This had nothing to do with Trump, nothing to do with Milo. And the thing that happened with Milo is like one of the worst timed things in the world. Like, I mean, I was genuinely shocked how badly timed it was. Because for anybody that doesn't know the full story, because I've seen this spun so many wrong ways, Milo sent these private, I want to emphasize that word, private texts to journalists that kept nagging him for interviews. Because instead of saying fuck off or screw you, he just said, and I quote, "I can't wait for the vigilante squads to start gunning down, or gunning journalists down on site," end quote. And to be honest with you, I would not have sent that, because journalists are scummy, dirty people. They're looking for a scoop anywhere. That would get taken out of context, as you saw it did. I wouldn't have done that. I understand Milo's trying to be trolly, provocative, edgy, and, just get these people to shut up. Like, I get it. I just wouldn't have phrased it that way or done what he said. But, of course, many outlets took this the wrong way. They said he was encouraging the gunning down journalists. I think that was the Observer, the New York Observer, said it was encouraging, journalists to get killed. Which, now Miles can start suing all these companies that smeared him. Because there are thousands of people on Twitter saying that he should lose his Instagram and lose his Facebook because he caused this shooting. Of course he did. Like, these were texts that were sent in private. Nobody knew that about these things. There's no way this guy that shot the Capital Gazette could have known about this. And it's been happening for years, since 2011. I mean, how much more can I emphasize? This has nothing to do with Milo. So Milo says he regrets nothing. You can read his full response to all these allegations on dangerous.com, his website. It should be like the first article on the homepage. But, again, I wouldn't have done what Milo's done. I generally agree with what Milo does, and I always love his sort of trolly, provocative behavior. This is one of those instances I would have said, no, don't do this. This is stupid. But in the end, like, I think, him doubling down isn't a bad move on his part, because he literally did nothing wrong in terms of the shooting. So it was like one of those crazy things where, like, the shooting happened like 2 days after he said these things and articles came out about it. It was just like, it was really like the worst timing in the world.
Yeah, Milo, if you're ever just like down on your luck and you want to go and talk to us, you're really welcome to come over here for an interview.
Yes.
I'll take you no matter how offensive. Anyone. I could care less who it is. I'm fine with interviewing anyone. Views.
Oh, we'd love to interview him. It'd be fabulous. Milo, I'd love to interview you. Like, you're one of my, I'm not gonna lie, you're one of my favorites out there. You're one of my idols. I love you. If you want to just drop by for a real news episode, like, we'd have you on for like hours, have so much fun. We're not like the mainstream media that selectively edits stuff, misrepresents, takes things out of context, and poses as objective and acts all nicey nice and then screws you in the final edit. No, we're right wing. We try to be objective as possible in telling you the facts, but then we give our commentary and tell you what we think about things. Like, we're not CNN.
Oh yeah, and just before we end up ending the show, we will get that email up for the contest.
Oh yes.
For the week. We've had a busy week, but we'll get that up. So I'm sure there's just people lined up wanting to go and submit their Space Force designs to us. But we'll get that done, and I'm sure we'll have other contests in the future, especially once we get double-digit subscribers.
Yes.
Definitely. Like and share this. We'd love to get more people on, and we could always use, I guess, people to go and do graphics and shit.
Yeah, I could always use the help. I mean, as Alex said, like, share, subscribe to the channel. Do everything to spread the word about our channel. We're on Facebook and Twitter, and we have a Discord link where you come in and actually talk to us on the show, have some fun. Links are in the description below, of course. But yeah, if you ever want to help out with graphics or anything, like, we would love some fan art to put in our thumbnails and stuff in our videos, because we plan on doing some videos with full-fledged graphics and shit like that. So, support us, please, because we're not CNN. We're not the Fox News, mainstream media BS.
We're not even InfoWars.
We're not even InfoWars. We're just two honest guys. They're just honestly just trying to give some clear objective but also subjective thoughts on news and politics and whatnot. You know, we want to tear down the mainstream media and create sort of an alternative media on YouTube that's, you know, free, fun-loving, and fun.
Yeah, but anyways, you know, it's been great having you guys week. Be sure to watch our upcoming videos. We'll eventually get down. So I think we got another movie review coming up this week.
Yeah, we're going to have a movie review of Lawrence Southern's documentary Farmlands. That should be up pretty soon, so check for that.
And we have some other movie, like maybe some point, and definitely some more foundries. We've been a little bit slacking on those, but you know, we'll get them up. They'll be there. You know, I know you love the. We'll have to do another sequel to the Incel ones. That's very popular.
Yes. Oh yeah, it's so funny. I was looking at the analytics, like the term that people search most to find our videos was incel.
Yeah, so, you know, all you incels out here, you know, if you ever want to go and talk, if you have any problems, we'd be more than happy to go and have someone to speak to.
Yeah, we'll do Stefan Molyneux style, fucking like breaking down the psychology of everything.
Yeah, we'll help you, you know, figure out yourself. You know, I'm not a clinical psychologist, neither is my co-host over here, but we'll figure it out. We'll do something. It'll be fun, you know. So if you're an incel, you got nothing to lose anyway.
Yeah, you got nothing to lose. Believe me, incels out there.
Except your virginity, you know, you can always lose that. But then you wouldn't be an incel, so that's, I guess, that's a victory condition.
Incels, like, I can relate to you people. I consider myself an incel ally. You know, it's like, you know, people talk about like, oh, like you're an LGBTQ ally. No, I'm a fucking incel ally. You'll get on my level, bro. Like, I'm not an incel, but let's just say I don't have a good history of the ladies. In other words, I have no history. But
well, you're voluntarily celibate. That's a different.
Am I?
You're like a priest, except for you don't fuck little boys. You know, not all priests. Not all priests.
Yeah, not all not all priests. But you know, anyway, well, my point is that I feel you. I can connect to you. I can relate. We can talk it out on it. You know, on one of these videos and help you out, and not only you, but other people, other incels. Like it is a legitimate problem. Like I'm being serious when I say it. Like. There are a lot of men that have problems with girls, and that's partially due to man-hating third-wave feminism and just society in general.
There's a lot of problems with that.
Oh, I mean,
that's a whole another topic. We already talked about it once.
Yeah.
We'll always go for more.
Yeah, plug the video.
You know, we'll post a link to that one possibly in the description. We'll see.
Yeah, look up the Foundry on it. Like we talk about it all there. Just look at it, you know?
All right, but anyways, I think that's enough for this. Yeah. And, you know, peace out. We'll see you next week, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll see you guys later. Peace.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with more real news.